My name is Jonathan Stone. I am a resident of a parallel world that is not far geographically from where Cathee lives. I live in the mountains of Colorado in the U.S., just as she does. My ancestors came to this country centuries ago, but they came from the same place her ancestors came from. In short, she likes to say that in my parallel world, it was the pagans who came to the quote New World, and in her parallel world, it was largely the Christians who came. My culture is very close, consults nature in everything we do. We're very close to the spirits of plants and trees and electromagnetic fields and all sorts of things. So today I have volunteered to be the one coming through her. I love your culture. I have worked with a lot of people who have actually managed to come over to my culture, my world, from your world, as refugees from an experiment that has gone a little crazy on yours, but it has infected our world as well. And we are working very closely with what we call leapees from your world to try to bridge cultures and bring your world a little closer to nature. And the people who have come from your culture are helping us to deal with some of the effects of some of the things your military has been doing electromagnetically that have reverberated into my world, even though we're at a little bit different density than your world is. So it's a beautiful give and take. I call your culture, the land of the brave, noble, and true. Whereas our culture is a little more laid back, a little more fun, I think, a little more sweet and sentimental in our. We're all in love here with, the roses, but also the daisies and the birds and everything. And we take that love very seriously. I mean, to us, it's not something that we hide, not something that we're a little shy about expressing. So I have been working closely with people who, what we say, have leapt from your world to my world. I work with the natural forces of incarnation, who we call the leapers, who I had worked with for decades before Cathee started working with them on your world. Cathee is the owner of this body, by the way, Cathee Courter. So we've known each other about 3 years, and Cathee's leapt off a wonderful parallel self who I worked with for a long time, doing orientation sessions for people who, the natural forces of incarnation, who are called the leapers, helped to go through a huge transformation so that they could come to my world and have their bodies operate, even though it's at quite a different vibration here, density. And that has gone very well. But one thing we have had on our wish list here is to begin to work with people there in your world long before they leap. There's been quite an influx. I mean, we've had thousands of leapies come. I live in a little mountain community, as Cathee does too, and in our area, which kind of also includes the valley below the mountain here, where you would consider Boulder, Longmont, that area, as well as Estes Park, Netherlands, kind of those are the mountain communities, those areas on your world. We don't have those cities here, but our population has tripled in the last 2 years, I'd say 3 years, since your people have been coming over. We live on a major vortex, which you call Long's Peak and Mount Meeker, that area. which is a particularly wonderful area to come to if you wish to do leaping to either my parallel world or to many of the other parallel worlds that are involved in this work of bringing people from your culture over to other worlds to bring the wisdom of what you learned through some of the interesting experiments you've been doing there with technology as supposedly divorced from nature, with extreme scientific objectivity that is, in my opinion, quite an illusion that you can be objective and distant when you are in one universe and one with everything in that universe. The objectivity is a relative thing. And I think basically, from what I understand, your science does understand that the universe runs on relationship, that everything is relative and everything is perceived. The perceiver always affects what they're perceiving because they're in a relationship with everything. We are hugely into relationship here. We are in relationship with everything we wear, everything we eat, everything in the sky. That's why I say we're real lovers here. We just go around in love with everything and everybody. Ideally, although there are, we still have our little ego battles too at times. But I think a lot of what's happening in these video series, as Cathee sometimes channels people from not your world exactly, but the world where John Kennedy Jr. was president. We should find a name for that world, I suppose, besides just always calling it that. But some of the people from there have talked in this series, and I guess if we're going to have people eventually talk from Cathee's particular world, she wouldn't have to channel them necessarily. They could come talk, and that may eventually happen in dialogue here. But what I think we're kind of doing a great cross-cultural dance here in trying to find the best of your world's technology and the gifts that have come from the extreme assertion that you can be separate from what you're observing, even though your science doesn't really say that, at least the science of the last 100 years, since Einstein hasn't really said that, but you still act as if science says that, especially in your legal battles, where polluters want to prove that they can pollute in an objective scientific way. It's still very big in the bone marrow, I think, of the gut reactions of people in your culture. And so when they come over to my culture, it can take a while, I have discovered, for people, leapies from your world, to be able to relax and trust that nature knows what it's doing, is intelligent, doesn't really need to be controlled. It's safe. It's ironic. Cathee fairly recently went through a major flood, and her town was part of a national disaster area in the United States. And I was watching this carefully as she went through this, and I find it very interesting how everyone wanted to rush in and be even more controlling of nature, as far as I could see. Whereas really, I think nature doesn't normally behave as the rains behaved the day they fell, or the night before the floods really swept through. it was human manipulation, I believe, that caused the floods. And whether that, there were the immediate problems of obvious chemtrail activity and cloud seeding. But, there's also the collective problems of what you call global warming coming from your technologies that put out a whole lot of pollution. So I think the urge to control nature, and which comes out in extreme ways of people wanting to put particles in the air to block the sun because of the ozone hole and so forth. And, human caused problems that humans rush in and try to do even more to make worse in the name of controlling nature. It is seems to me, from observing both the people that have left here and what happened with Cathee and the flood, that I guess there seems to be quite a stubborn resistance to opening one's heart and trusting that Mother Earth will indeed mother you. And you don't need to force her to do that. You don't need to be real constricted around that issue. It seems to me that in your world, the term the economy is used constantly. But what about the economy? As if the economy were not totally dependent on the planet and her resources and her willingness to nurture the human life on the planet, just as she nurtures the squirrels and the grass. So I have good news for you on your world. And the good news is that nature is trustworthy. In my culture, the sun always shines. The rains always come. We don't worry about those things. So even though we come from the same ancestry, at least, Cathee and I do. We both have Irish ancestors back in the old world, even though we live here in what do you call America, North America. And we, we have similar cultural roots. In other words, even your Native American people are similar to the Native Americans that live in my world. That culture, I think we split off. Like I said, I think a few hundred years ago, in the Middle Ages. So even though we have similar cultures, we went a very different way than you went. And I don't think even our Native Americans, which, we call a different term, could relate that well to your Native Americans. There's been so much change. They still are much more in touch with their ancient roots, like I am, I think, much more in touch with the ancient Gaelic roots, even in our language, than your Irish people, your Irish Americans are, by far. And so many times when Leapies come here, immigrate here, to them our world seems very enchanted. And what I have discovered And part of why I'm doing this is because I expect many people who are watching this video may want to leap to my world as yours gets scarier and scarier. And so, I want to do a little orientation session before you come, so we don't have to do so much. Once you're here, you'll feel more comfortable, we think, and you'll know what you're getting into. If you ask the leapers to leap you, you'll know a little more what you're getting into. So that's what part of this. Anyway, so I have found that many of the people who come here from your worlds, you're not everyone watching this video is from shares the same president of various countries or shares the same history even. But obviously anybody watching this video is part of a world split off. There's infinite parallel worlds, but that has the capacity to watch videos. So yeah, I assume that my audience is fairly homogenous in that way. In cultural assumptions that led to the invention of the camera, for instance. Anyway, so I find that people who come here find our world to be enchanted, magical almost. I mean, just the way the rains always come for one thing, and the sun shines, and we trust it, and our relationship with food growing. Cathee lives in an area, and when she comes up, I actually live at a higher elevation than she does, a little bit, but it's only like, a half an hour away, where I often live in that commune. We live in communes here, and, up the mountain. And we have an apple orchard around our homes. And it is what she would call, an area with a lot of subalpine firs in your equivalent of where I live, almost all pine, spruce, fir, and aspen. And there's a belief that you couldn't also have an apple orchard there because your growing season isn't long enough and it gets very cold for most of the year. It seems most of the year. I guess it's not really, but we have a way of talking to our food and listening to our food and to the apple trees, and we have evolved together to be both people who can eat certain kinds of apples and apples who can exist here and thrive in a mountain, high altitude environment. This is true of so many things in my world, that we have a lot of give and take with what the trees that become our homes have changed as we have worked with them, so that they are, if you came in with your measurements of how much insulation a log cabin has from the cold, our values, ours, I'm sure, would be much warmer logs than yours are. I like to tell Cathee that logs have within them the fire that they someday will burn. When they burn, they have the fire element in them. And we greet that fire element in the tree and after it's cut down. And we generally are able to just build with ones that naturally have fallen. Although not always. Sometimes they volunteer because they want to come be near us. That fire element is something that we love, and I want to say solicit. But when I say solicit, you solicit anything by focusing on it, and by saying, I'm in a relationship with this log, and the aspects of that log that I'm in relationship with include the fire within the wood. So in my loving the fire within the wood, when I am in a house built of those kinds of trees and with that kind of relationship going, I feel the warmth. I mean, I literally feel the warmth. I don't have to wear a lot of clothes like you would to feel warm. Layers, It's not unlike, the sunlight. If you see that as a very positive relationship, you will draw to you aspects that are nurturing. Cathee tells me that it's pretty recent that people discovered or believed that, you get vitamin D from the sun instead of just the burning rays that give you skin cancer. So which are you eliciting in your relationship, the nutrition or the skin damage? It's in your world, you believe that there is an objective effect, that sunlight always has the same effect on everyone. And your scientists say they can study this in the lab and prove it. In our world, I would say that my relationship with the sun is different than your relationship with the sun. And if you want to bring on the skin cancer in your relationship with the sun, that's your choice. I'm going to, I don't really think of the sun as a form of nutrition, I guess consciously that much, but I see it certainly as the source of inspiration for me often. That's something that's just me personally. When I turn to the sun and want to be in the sun, it's often if I'm, feeling a little like it's been an awfully long winter and it's cold and it's damp, and so I can, if the sun is bright, even if it's in, January, which is winter in our hemisphere, I can go out and love the sun and receive the same amount if I really wish to. And we solicit things by loving them. I love the sun and she loves me back. And I'm just making up the gender. I talk about her. And I can pull in to my aura and to my body and to my heart the radiance that normally you might only feel in the middle of August, looking at the sun, on a lake or something where it's reflecting at you. I can concentrate on that radiance and that warmth and that be enlivened by it, even in the middle of winter, because I have developed that kind of relationship with the sun that can happen really quickly. Whereas you may take a sun bath, but your belief that the sun is not a living being gets in the way, I think, for most people from your world, of truly enjoying those aspects. It's not unlike, we do the same thing with humans. If you see someone as your hired help, let's say, then you're going to look at them in terms of their productivity. And they may have wonderful talents and personality, gifts, and so forth, that you don't even really enjoy that much, because what you're focused on is, are you getting your money's worth for the wages you pay them. It's the same with a relationship with anything. There's there are places in relationships that objectivity cannot take you. You have to open and give and take. And so the sun turns to me when she wants certain qualities to be reflected to her. And I love her, and she knows it. And she thrives on my love. I know it. No scientist can tell me otherwise. I know the sun enjoys my love for her because we're in love. We're in love. So when your people come over, for a while, everything just seems magical to them. You know, it's like the Wizard of Oz. They're in this place where the things aren't black and white anymore. You know, it's like color TV. It's like you know, everything's brilliant, and people open and they feel the earth love them in a new way, and they realize that spiders can even be friends, you know, and mice can be friends, you know, and let alone dogs, which Cathee tells me are there's an overpopulation of in your world, because people don't really realize that all animals can be very close in a love relationship with people. Spiders can too, people, you know, be in a close relationship with people. So this enchantment continues usually with people for well, it differs by the person, but usually not even a year. And people are learning very quickly about how we do things, you know, and how we grow our plants, how we talk to them, how we choose our fabric for our clothes, and consult nature in every decision that is going to affect, you know, food growing or clothing or building or, you know, external things, as well as internal things. And then I see this almost always, with a few rare exceptions. People come up against their gut knowing, you know, their whole cultural programming, that you can't really trust nature, that humans have to be good stewards of nature, and we have to decide what's best for the planet as humans. And that final need to let go of the control is usually a huge struggle in people. And I've seen people get really sick when they come to that point of seeing, first of all, you know, they have usually gathered a lot of information and seen that we consult nature in where to put our homes, what to make them out of, how to construct them, you know, for example. And nature's pretty smart. Nature comes up with solutions that you would call technological, that are what Cathee thinks are pretty advanced. And like in how to heat a home, she loves the example I told her. One of the first things I told her was that I heat my home with cosmic energies by shaping the roof in a certain shape, and that the subatomic particles coming in, or you could call the wavelengths, one or the other, the same thing, from some cosmic energies told me how to shape my roof so that they can heat the water held in the basins on the roof, which mine, and they told me what to make it out of. Mine is black marble. It's just beautiful, and so it doesn't look like a big old what do you call HVAC, heating air conditioning unit. It works better than that, and it's just a slab of marble. But there's intention, there's relationship in it, there's great knowledge, and creative experimentation with these beings. That's I don't know why she loves that example more than many others. There's others that I think are even more interesting, but in comparing our cultures, for instance, we consider what we do in our sleep time often more important than what we do when we're awake. I think that's a huge difference between the cultures too, and in our altered states of consciousness. But anyway, for your culture, people from your worlds, when they realize that this approaching nature beings with a sense of equality actually works really well in accomplishing the aims of being fed, being housed, being clothed, the necessities of life. That you don't really have to dominate or control anything. You don't have to rationalize that you are using too many of the Earth's resources and not returning it, through composting or reusing or letting things biodegrade back. When they, I think a tremendous rationalization on your world is that we have to pollute in order to have the technologies to get our needs met, for the basic necessities of life. And part of why I'm talking today along this line is having watched very closely as Cathee went through the flood, and she was in a little town of 1,200. She lives in a little town, a little mountain town, and it has just one highway going through the middle of the town, and that's the only road out, because there's mountains. She's in a bowl with mountains all around, and so half the town was airlifted out by helicopter, and the other half of the town, some of the people just stayed, and some people managed to create another road out using an old 140-year-old stagecoach road. They just improved it to where they could get out with their cars. But during that week or so where, there was no electricity, the water was in question for certain parts of town, some of the things that you consider absolutely essential for life. Telephone was down, and it's a town without a cell phone tower. So she found it very interesting how dependent everybody was on resources that you all know are limited, that you all know you're hurting the earth hugely by extracting, like the propane. They cause health concerns, like the electricity, those fields. And I think, I was watching kind of almost through Cathee's eyes, but it really hit me much more than it's ever hit me from, interacting with people after they've come to our culture. How much you all live with the understanding that lack and the fear of lack is, I think, a huge part of your relationship with nature. Who's going to extract the minerals first? Who's going to get them? The competition for that. And who's going to dodge, having to pay the pollution costs, the cleanup costs of that extraction. And if you don't get yours, you're going to freeze, you're going to starve, and you have to keep the economy going as an excuse to rape nature and not have a relationship with her because it's the human economy. I knew that these concepts were there. I've never actually sat down and read one of your newspapers. But I think I saw it in a whole new way when people really were faced with not having these things. And Cathee found it interesting that it was the old timers, the people in their 80s who were the ones that said, no, I'm just going to stay and sit this out, until the roads are built, and I'm not going to evacuate. And in a way, they were able to do that because they didn't have jobs that were demanding that they get immediately out and go back to work. But also, she wondered if it was partly because probably those people grew up without electricity anyway, in their childhoods. They knew it was possible. She and Peter went out on luckily were able to go out when that temporary road was built, improved enough, and she had planned to go visit her family in Kansas anyway, but then they went camping. It was Cathee's first camping experience in sub-freezing weather, and she loved it. So they were voluntarily going without electricity, without the telephone, without all that stuff, and without even heat, really, except they ended up at a hot springs, which was a wonderful form of natural heat. And after living in a tight situation where everybody was so afraid, that they wouldn't get what they needed. Your people tell me over and over that people do starve in your worlds if they're not a part of, quote, that abstraction, the economy. People don't have a place to live if they don't own land, and to own land you have to be part of the economy. It's not enough to say, well, the earth loved me enough to bring forth my life, and so I belong on the earth, and I get to have a place to lay my head at night. And I have to admit, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that your governments are structured to especially local governments, to believe that you can outlaw people sleeping in parks at night. That blows my mind. To tell someone it's illegal for them to be on the planet. They're on the planet. They have to sleep. How can you outlaw that? But it's done over and over, from what Cathee tells me, and others as well. So I guess what I want to do here is not just rag on your culture, but I want to invite you, before you come, before you leave, to take very seriously what you can borrow from our culture, and we're very happy to share with you, and many cultures, many native cultures in your world, Aboriginal, that's what you call it sometimes, start adopting, whether you ever plan to leap over to our world or not, or any other, the idea of relating to everything in your environment. And not even in your environment, in your own body, in your own soul. What I think I would love to give everyone that I meet from your world is a sense of peace. That you would not exist on this planet if you were not meant to be here. No matter what your age or race or body shape or intelligence level or anything, you are a gift of the earth to itself. You're part of the movement of meanings and purposes. And you could not exist here if that were not so. And so relax. I know that you have a lot of New Age philosophers who kind of go along like that and say, and it's good, if you believe you will have plenty, you will have plenty. But I see so many people who then, if they don't have plenty, think they're not good enough, they haven't thought the right thoughts, they haven't felt the right feelings. And that can be just as much of a trap, So I'd like to say that you belong on this planet, and the earth wishes to nurture you. I know she does. Whether you're thinking thoughts of lack or not, whether you are, one of the beautiful people that are probably going to rise to the top of your economy or not, and whether you're hurting or not, I truly believe the intent and the deep desire of the earth herself. And I feel very close to her personally, so I will speak on her behalf. She wants to hold you. She wants to nurture you. She wants your love back. And I think that's what's missing from your environmental movement, is a knowing, a being in love with the earth in a way that is total. Not, I will love the earth this far, but then I need to control her at some point. Because, it gets cold in the winter, and I'm not sure she will keep me warm, So I will love her in the summer and just, lie out in the meadows at night in the summer. But in the winter, I better be fracking the earth to stay warm. It kind of gets a little edgy there sometimes. I would really urge you to watch those rationalizations in your head and the limits of what you think nature can do. The limits of what you think the earth can do in loving you and supporting you. And why wouldn't she love you and support you? Why wouldn't she? I guess I have a very simple message here. So simple. And I don't know how to put into words the difference in a people who feel like the earth loves them. It changes everything. It changes our relationships with each other. It changes the way that we go about. We feel that we come in with talents to give, and we don't talk about job creation. We talk about, are you giving your talents? Are you developing your talents? Are you giving back? Because you were created a certain way, because the earth needed your talents. The earth needed you. The human community needed you specifically, not some job to be filled in some, cog in a machine. It affects the way we raise our children. I taught my children some basic, don't go pull the skunk's tail, all kinds of things. But I basically taught my kids an attitude of relationship towards everything. And then I just set them free, like if, for instance, my daughter Tabitha, I remember when she was 7. And she said, Dad, I really feel that I need to go spend 3 nights by myself in a cave. That was out, not far from the house, but, half a mile maybe. Because I need to spend some time with the stars. And I want to be alone and connect with them. And is it okay if I, just go spend some nights there? And could you, help me get some food ready? And this was in summer, she didn't need to drag too much out there, although she did drag quite a bit out there in terms of bedding and so forth. But I didn't even hesitate to say, yeah, fine. I knew that if she were getting a very strong intuition from the cave, or you could say from her soul or from the earth, that's where she needed to be, of course she'd be fine. Of course. She didn't need my worry about wild animals or something. Of course she'd be fine. And I tell that story, and I hear so many parents just kind of shocked about what seemed so simple to me, that I feel the earth takes care of me. I feel the earth takes care of my children. And this is taking that principle a little bit farther. Your people are coming to our land in great numbers. And I will admit that at first the cultural differences were very difficult for me. I felt they brought their tendency towards hierarchy. Since I am a teacher here, I found people wanting to be the teacher's pet, instead of just learning what I was teaching. They wanted to be close to the person who seemed to have a little bit of power. I mean, like if I was teaching about gardening, they knew that I might have a little edge on the food supply, is what they perceived. He's probably got the key to the granary. He's teaching about how to grow food, and after a while they gave that up because it takes months usually for people to really grok that we don't have grocery stores. We don't have grocery stores. If you're going to eat in the winter, you need to learn a few gardening skills. But anyway, hierarchical look at things, the let's grab some power, let's grab some resources, even around from the side, let's go flirt with the teacher who might have the key to the granary, or whatever, or show him that I have skills that he should make me his number two man, vice president of this greenhouse, or whatever. Those kinds of attitudes at first were very difficult. It seems very different than the idea that the earth will take care of you and you can have a loving relationship with everything directly. But here we are, 2 or 3 years out, and even though I do think it's the technology from your world that has caused some major problems in our world, with what, simplistically you could call mind control. The deep, committed, passionate ability of your people to give and to contribute to helping us work through and find solutions to some of this the huge problems that have come, have given me tremendous admiration for your people. I thought I was a part of a very generous culture, where, people do take care of each other. But when I have seen some of the people who have come over, who have literally been tortured in your world, and so, we're some of the most eager to get off that sinking ship. And I look at what they've been through in their lives, or people who have come from extreme hardship, people who have come from nations that don't have enough food, and have, foreign corporations raping their resources, and their country taking their resources, raping their country, their land. And I see the capacity for love and for hope and for a faith that love will get us all through anything. Anything. And I think a lot of these people have seen just about anything, Then I feel like these refugees, many of them, and other immigrants, are, the most beautiful thing that could have come to my world. And they are truly changing our culture in ways that I never could have foreseen, but much of it is good. And I have fallen in love over and over with so many people who have come from your worlds. So I want to tell you, I know the Leapers have said that many of our soul family, many people, period, have been put into very, born into incredibly difficult situations, and some in centers of power. And power in your world tends to be large, often in highly technological situations. In order for them to then see how to, first of all, learn from this experiment in extreme technology, extreme objectivity, extreme human domination, really. to bring that knowledge then with them when they leap. So the leapers like to say, so the universe never has to do that experiment again. We'll remember what happens if Cathee sits here and looks into this camera with these bright lights on her. Or like, what was that experience like? It's kind of funny because Peter's sitting behind the camera, looking at her, but there's this camera in between, this lens, and that's my chance to talk to you, dear listener. What has that meant to humankind in our so-called evolution or de-evolution, whichever you see it, our experimentation nonetheless. And also many people are in very difficult circumstances so that they can bring light there, and they can bring hope there, and they can help to, since they're causing a lot of the problems that come from some of these technologies, they're very knowledgeable in the pursuit of healing some of the problems that have come from them. And so I know a lot of people who leap are probably, proportionately come from more difficult situations than, even political situations, than the average person on your world. But especially for those of you who know that you are in a downward spiral culturally, your civilization is. I don't know how to put into words that even though you may have contributed to global warming, by driving your car, or, Cathee often talks of how there's really hardly anything she does any minute of the day that doesn't involve some product or another, or even her home, that has involves a product that is non-compostable, non-biodegradable, that's hard on the earth, and that therefore, it's not sustainable, and it's part of the downward spiral that I think a lot of people are expecting a crash from. I want to tell you that even though, yes, you're responsible for pollution and so forth, that the earth loves you. Now you're just going to have to take it on my own gut feeling, because I do have a very close relationship with the earth. Very close. Just like I do with the sun, like I was talking about. The earth really loves you in spite of your lifestyle, in spite of your culture, in spite of your civilization. And if you are one of the ones even listening to this video, chances are good, you are part of a dying civilization, because your higher purpose involved being part of a dying civilization, at whatever your level of understanding of just how dire the situation is on Earth. Some people understand that in detail, and that's their job to study that, and others just kind of have a feeling that something's not right because they're not happy, and the mall just doesn't quite make them happy or something. Whatever your level of understanding, I know the earth loves you. And I think ecologically the way home is to open your heart to the earth and let her love you. And then you'll want to change your lifestyle. But I want to tell you, even as a member of a culture whose world, everyone tells me, from your world too, seems like paradise compared to your worlds, where the sun still shines and the rain still come, and the flowers love you. Even as a member of that culture who has experienced some of the worst bleed-throughs of the effects of your technology on the earth and on the human brain, on the human spirit. And I'm sure that we will talk more about that in further videos. I think Kim has touched on some of those. If you look at the videos with the astral level of of technology, he's done a series, and I hope he'll continue that to kind of get into the details of that. But I want to say that I love you too. That who you are as a human being is what I see. The culture you're in is peripheral. The fact that you are a part of my earth, even on a different world, and we are, as the Indians on your world have said, we are kin. You are family to me. We're doing these bizarre experiments together. On our world, we didn't realize we would be sucked into these experiments quite as much as we have been, but a lot of the whole scientific philosophy is rather, rather new on any of our worlds compared to the long history of living in harmony with nature. It's quite a ride we're on together. And I want to tell you, I have had a big change of heart over the last couple of years. At first, I was obsessed with the fear that your people coming, and we knew you were coming. I'm a seer on my world. We knew you were coming. We knew you'd come in great numbers, and we knew that you would help us with an epidemic that your world had caused on our world. And we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it right now. And your people are coming over and are helping understand the technology that caused it. But, at first I was, afraid that your world would ruin ours, quite frankly. And I can't believe the change in me, because I now see, really at a gut level, that we have still the philosophy of relationship, of loving the earth and all of her beings, that can nurture you. It's something you need desperately, I think, on your world. Even to just not be depressed all the time, to really have joy in life. And I now see that is our part of this great experiment in taking scientific objectivity, in other words, which often is used as a rationalization to use everybody and everything, as if you're not going to be affected by the results. You can pollute the earth and you won't feel it. The distancing and the refusing to relate to everything. That we have been a part of your experiment all along. We broke off with you, from you, like I said, in the Middle Ages, our worlds, I think. And there's been a lot of bleed through all the way through. We do have trains, we do have cars. They're not at all like yours. And some people say that maybe they're a little bit too much like yours, like maybe we shouldn't go down that road too much farther. But in general, they're much healthier than yours. But I think now, and I truly feel this, that our world was supposed to hang on to some of the values, the very earth-centered values. And your world was supposed to go berserk in exploring certain values. And it's our job now to welcome many of you home. And together see, what did you learn by going where you went? And, there's a lot of beauty in where you've gone. There's a lot of beauty in your technology, too. We're very aware of that. I guess I just want to say, even if you're one of those people who are like the people in Colorado who were in the flood and realized that they could no longer use their toilets, their indoor plumbing. Even if you're one of those people who, are rare out there because a lot of people hike out there, but who panic that they might have to dig a hole outside to go to the bathroom, and panic that they can't get on their Facebook and tell their friends what was going on, and panic that they may have to eat food cold from a can, and can't watch their movies, and there was so much talk of looters. Oh no. If we leave our homes and get evacuated, someone's going to rob my home. That's what Cathee heard over and over and over. Someone's going to loot my home, which I find remarkable that happens. I mean, kick them in the teeth when they're down. I mean, like somebody would actually do that. But it was also a little strange that she thought, now this is Cathee's thoughts, not mine, that's what people were obsessed with, instead of how do we change our lifestyle so that these floods can not happen anymore, and how do I live sustainably so that I'm off the electric grid anyway, I don't need it. She didn't hear much of that. But anyway, even if you're one of those people that is very addicted to the internet, doesn't know how to go to the pee outside, doesn't know how to cook, doesn't know that food doesn't come from grocery stores, but actually grows out in earth, and you actually can put a seed in the ground, and it'll feed you. Even if you're one of those people, I especially if you're one of those people, I want you to know that the earth loves you, and that you are welcome to come to our world. We may look at you as if you're a space alien, or we may not quite know how to relate to you. But you are on this planet for a purpose. And you have gotten where you've gotten for a purpose. So I send you my greetings. And I'm glad we're all in this together. I hope that I have created more goodwill than bad will through this video. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure many of my prejudices have come through. That is one thing our culture is big on, is dialogue and working out misunderstandings. And may have to do some of that here. But I just so want to greet you people. So be it.